Yeah. So, welcome. This is the first ever episode of the Trash Station podcast. This is your gaming podcast, all about weird, unknown, and forgotten video games. My name is Chris. I am one of your hosts. I am known as Scotch and Hobbies on the internet, and I am here with my co-host Max, also known as Potomax on the internet.
Yeah, welcome.
So for this first episode, we kind of wanted to talk briefly before getting into the games that we're currently have been playing. We wanted to kind of talk briefly about our history with video games. And we didn't discuss this before going live, actually, Max, but I don't think that really matters. Would you like to kind of share a brief history of like where you started with video games and how you got to where you're at now? And maybe a little bit about like, because I don't know how much of a collector you are, if you have a room full of antiquated toys that nobody cares about anymore except for a few weirdos on the internet or anything like that. So
yeah, I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna try to keep it brief because like 30-something years of playing video games, you can say a lot. But basically, my dad was kind of into gaming when I was young, so we had the NES, and so I played some NES like when I was a baby. I have a couple photos of me just staying in my standing chair playing some Super Mario 1. But when I really started playing video games was with the Super Nintendo. And basically, when we were young, I woke up really early, like 5 a.m. every morning, and I had a Super Nintendo in my room. So for like an hour or so, every morning, I would just wake up, stay silent, and play some Super Nintendo before going to school. So, yeah, that was like my big gaming moment. I loved it. I played a lot of Super Mario World, Donkey Kong Country. The Donkey Kong Country 2 and 3 are like my favorite games ever. That's exactly the kind of platformer I love to play. And those games have so much ambience, and the flow of the game is just fast enough. The levels aren't too long. There's enough secrets to find. Man, I love those games. And
they're fun. I've always really struggled with the Donkey Kong Country games personally.
Yeah, especially for the Super Nintendo, like the field of view is very corrupt. So especially the first one, like I know the other ones are pretty hard too, but like the first one, which is the one that most people are aware of, you get enemies in your face all the time. If you run into the levels and you don't know the levels beforehand, it's like you have to tiptoe all your way through. I get it. It's like you, especially for the time, you kind of have to know the games to appreciate the games. Like your first playthrough is gonna be miserable,
right?
And yeah, I played a lot of Super Nintendo, and then I was just like a Nintendo fanboy up until like my 20s. I had the Nintendo 64. I remember really asking for Donkey Kong 64 for my birthday, and it was like the very first time like I was asking for a new video game that was coming out at the time it was coming out, and not just buying anything. I was like, before that, I wasn't really aware of video games coming out and the release dates and everything. So the Donkey Kong 64 was like my big foray in like new games. And then I played a lot of GameCube. That was like really my first console for me. Like the GameCube, the DS, that was like the generation where there were my consoles and not just the console I asked my parents and sharing with my brothers and sisters. And then the Wii was amazing. I stayed up all night in front of the Walmart with my dad. We were like seventh in line to get a Wii. It was freezing. It was so cold. I don't know in Fahrenheit what the temperature is, but it was below freezing level. It was really cold, and we had to stay up all night to keep our place in the line. And yeah, I got the Wii day one. It was an amazing experience. I came back home and slept the whole day. Only played the Wii on the following day. And yeah, the Wii was like the GameCube was my first real console, but the Wii was the first console where I was buying my games for it. Like it was my console that I bought the game. I bought the console with my little money I had from the little work I was doing at the time. And yeah, the Wii, I really, really liked the Wii, but it was also kind of my last time that I was very big into playing games. After the Wii, I started college and I just had other stuff to do, like starting to work, having friends, starting drinking and everything. So I was still like a Nintendo fanboy. I got the Wii U and played a bit of that, but I wasn't playing a lot anymore. I was more like keeping up on games more than playing. And in the meantime, if we go back a little bit, while I was learning everything about Nintendo, I wasn't really aware of anything outside of that. And the other kind of games I was playing were mainly Flash games, because we had a Mac in the early 2000s, so no game, like everything was for Windows at the time. Mac was a very niche system.
Right. Nothing worked on Mac.
So actually, the few games that we got on Mac were from a weird website called Mac Free Games, and the website is like set up like a Space Invader page, and every game category is like a Space Invader in the space. It's a very weird website. It was just like a bunch of demos and freeware. Yeah. Okay. So I played a lot of Flash games. Like that's a very big nostalgic point for me. And even when I was in college, I was still following Not Doppler every week, checking the new releases. I played so much of the Impossible Quiz, all the like the Burrito Bison games. So that was like my two niche. And the last niche that I had was when the 360, the Xbox 360 came out. And my dad, that was like his comeback into gaming. Like when the game turned 3D, he kind of left gaming for a while, but the 360 was like, that was his console. He played so much Fable 2. He played a lot of of poker online too. And for like this podcast, that's when I learned about indie games. Like everybody learned about indie games during the Xbox 360 time, but I was big into going into the live arcade and downloading all their weird demos out there and playing all, because like there were two tiers of live arcade. There were like the official live arcades with like Braid and Peggle and those games, but there were also like the indie corner of like more weird games. I think it was maybe free to publish on there. I remember there was a big game that was another game about zombies, and I made this game for my kid and weird stuff like that. And there were new releases every week, and I just like going into that weird section of the Xbox Live Arcade and just playing all the weird stuff that people were making alone on their computers. So that was very big for me.
I really wish I would have gotten a 360 simply for the Xbox Live Arcade, because I never had one until like maybe a year ago, and now the 360 store is gone at this point, and even still, I didn't spend a whole lot of time like digging in and trying to find some of those games that were available only on that service, especially at that time. So that is kind of a blind spot for me,
it was the Far West. It was the Far West of everyone just doing whatever's like they were published game. Nowadays it's just like on itch, and people are used to saying game jam games and everything, but at that time it was really, really novel seeing like $2 games about like Smash Bros with farts and stuff like that. So yeah. And then after college, I just, like I said, I kind of dropped off of playing games. I bought a Switch, barely used it. I played a bit of Rocket League. I discovered The Witness. Like, we made a list of our favorite games. We'll maybe go through that after that. But yeah, I discovered like a couple really good indie games. I discovered my love for puzzle games. I played a lot of Baba Is You on my Switch too. Yeah. And then I, like last year in 2023, I decided that I wanted to play more games because I like games, but I wasn't playing them. I wasn't taking the time to play games. I have a YouTube channel in French, and most of my free time at that time was going into that YouTube channel. It doesn't go anywhere, but I really like making videos, like scripting stuff, filming stuff, editing stuff. But it wore on me, especially because there's not a lot of content creators in Quebec, so I'm kind of alone in my niche doing my stuff. So
Right.
I need something a bit more positive in my life, and playing games, it came back at the right time. Like in 2023, I beaten like 1,000 shitty games, but it was a really, really good time, and that's when I discovered the Polykill, the Polymedia Discord, and the whole area of podcasts, and I discovered you too. And since last year, I mostly always having a game in the background. I play a lot of my phone. Yeah, I didn't talk about phone games, but maybe we will be able to dig into that a bit in another episode. But I like mobile games. I like good mobile games. There's not a lot, but when you find like real games on the mobile, on the phone, I like that. And yeah.
Speaking of, did you ever play a game called Doom and Destiny on the phone?
Don't think. Doom and Destiny. What kind of game is it?
Yeah, Doom and Destiny. It's a JRPG. I played that back in like 2014 or so, something like that, when I had a Windows phone. It was basically the only game that I had.
Oh, you were a Windows phone?
Yeah.
That's my first phone. That was my first smartphone too. I loved my my Windows phone.
Yeah, that was my first smartphone also. And I really liked it, and I eventually went over to Android, but Doom and Destiny is still available on like modern platforms, and I think the guy made a sequel to it. But it's a really cool JRPG where it's kind of set like the setup is that there's these guys and they're playing Dungeons and Dragons, but they can't use Dungeons and Dragons because it's a registered IP with Wizards of the Coast.
Yeah.
So they call it Doom and Destiny, and like their game master got sucked into their fantasy game world, and they have to go and like try and save him, but he ends up, spoilers for a game that came out in like 2012, he ended up being like the final boss of that game world. It's like a 10-hour long JRPG that you could get on your phone. It was really good.
Yeah, I'm watching the trailer right now. It looks pretty funny, and according to my Steam add-on, they made like over 300K on Steam alone.
Yeah, it was a wildly successful
That's cool.
game. A lot of fun. I highly recommend it.
Nice. Yeah, my big game on my Windows phone was Beast Quest. I don't know if you ever heard of Beast Quest.
I have not.
It's so good. It's like my favorite mobile game ever, and it's not. I checked it earlier last week, and I think it's not on the stores anymore. But basically, it's a 3D RPG, but the fighting system is basically Punch-Out.
Okay.
So whenever you encounter an enemy, it goes into a Punch-Out mode, and you have to dodge left and right and attack and block the attacks, just like you would do with Punch-Out. It's kind of mixing World of Warcraft, but single player, and the fights are punch-out fights.
That sounds
real fun.
That sounds really fun. I did a quick Google search for Beast Quest, and I get a series of young adult novels. I'm sure that's not what you're talking about. So
yeah, I think it's based on the novels. And
okay.
There's another version of the game on Steam that I actually have, but I only played like an hour or so.
I'll keep this tab up for later.
That's something I'd like to revisit, like especially the sequel on Steam that I never finished. I'd like to revisit that. It's mostly negative on Steam, but it seems like our kind of trash that we might actually enjoy.
Right. So before I get started on like kind of my history, do you do any like collecting? Do you have a room full of retro games or anything like that, or do you just mostly play online on Steam and itch and whatnot?
Yeah, not anymore. When I was in college, I was watching the AVGN, like most nerds at the time.
Right.
And I started collecting the Super Nintendo and Game Boy and Nintendo 64, like all the consoles that I was nostalgic for. But after moving like 5 times in 5 years and moving all those boxes of stuff that I never play, I was fed up. I was fed up of dealing with that, so I gave it all to my brother.
Okay.
And nowadays I'm just playing stuff digitally. The only thing I actually collect is it's a podcast, so you won't be able to see it, but I started collecting video game plushies like 2 or 3 years ago, and I mostly try to buy them secondhand. So I try to not like buy new stuff just because I think it's pollution in some way. But if I can find a couple plushies in a yard sale or anything, I'm super stoked. Last year I got like Baby Mario and Bowser for like $5 each from a kid just selling his old plushies at a yard sale, and that was pretty fun.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that. So as for me, I grew up with the Sega Genesis. We got a Genesis in like 94, 95, so I was 4 or 5 years old when we got a Genesis, and we had that basically all of my childhood. So like some of my favorite games for the Genesis were Earthworm Jim and Vector Man, so I don't know. I love Earthworm Jim. It's still so much fun. But after we had a lot of
Did you
Genesis
ever beat
games.
it at the time?
I don't think I ever beat it at the time. I know I got really far into it because I've gone back and I've beaten it not recently, like within the last 10 years I've gone back and beaten it. And it is a very difficult game, and I remember a lot of the later levels, but like you get into, they call it heck, but it's essentially hell in the last few levels, and those levels are insanely hard even for me as an adult. So I don't think I ever beat them as a child, but I also had a lot more time to devote to playing games like that when I was a kid. So maybe I did and I just don't remember. But after the Genesis, we did have a 64. We didn't. I don't remember having a whole lot of games for the 64, like maybe 10. We had the popular stuff. We had Mario and Mario Kart and Diddy Kong Racing and GoldenEye and a few other games. And it wasn't something that like, I don't know. I didn't really connect with the 64 quite as much, but then we got the PlayStation 1 and playing Spyro the Dragon and Crash Bandicoot was like, that was my 3D platformers. And then eventually we got a PS2 around the time that the PS2 released, and I think that was like 2002 when we got the PS2. And then like when I was in high school, I found Resident Evil, the first one. I was 14, and that became one of my favorite games of all time, if not my favorite game of all time. And actually I played Resident Evil 3 first, and then I went back and played 1, and then eventually played 2, and I've kind of been obsessed with the series ever since then. But I don't remember ever playing like an RPG until like 2004, 2005 when I was in high school and going to GameStop and buying like Final Fantasy VII out of their, $5 PS1 bin that nobody wanted games from. And then that's where like I got my copy of Silent Hill. That's where I got my copy of Silent Hill 2, which I still have. It is sitting right next to me because I've been playing that. I'm not going to talk about it today, but I've been playing Silent Hill 2 again. It's amazing. I love that game. And then I had kind of a weird thing happen in high school where I essentially moved out of my parents' house or my mom's house while I was still in high school. So when I was 16, almost 17, I moved out and then was basically on my own and kind of forgot about video games for quite a long time because, surviving and paying rent is more important than being able to afford video games. And so eventually around 2015, 2016 or so, I started getting back into gaming a little bit. And like through that whole time, I always had my PlayStation 2, but I had like the same 20 games for it, and I would just play them every once in a while. But then I got a Sega Genesis again from somebody that I used to work with, and it wasn't an actual Genesis. It was one of those, I don't know if you ever saw them. It was AT Games released these like ROM boxes that also played Genesis cartridges, and they were terrible. Like the ROMs are horrible in those, but that kind of got me back into playing Genesis, and then I started kind of going crazy and getting into consoles that I didn't have before. Like I didn't have a Nintendo or a Super Nintendo growing up. Never really played them either, so I started getting into those. And I finally bought like an Xbox, and now I have a collection where I've got like, I don't know, 20, 25 consoles or so, something around there. Most of the cartridge-based stuff I've sold in favor of EverDrives. That way, my collection money can go to the stuff that I care about collecting more, which is mostly PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3. And
that sounds like a good deal. Like you put your priority where you want to put them.
Yeah.
So.
I think it's better to do it that way to have like a little bit more of a focused kind of collection than, spread my money out over a bunch of things and like buy a Nintendo 64 cartridge that I don't necessarily care about the game all that much. But I started getting into indie games because I bought a PS4. Well, I bought a PS3 first. I bought my PS3 in 2016, which was my first console upgrade from the PS2 since like 2002 when I had a PS2, or when I first got a PS2. And I bought a few games online on the PlayStation 3 store, but then when I got the PlayStation 4 and I started going into the PS store, I'd be going through like a sale, and games would be like kind of discounted, but I'd be like, well, I have $20. I don't necessarily want to buy one game. So I would start looking through and I would find, these little indie games that I'd never heard of for $3 on sale or $2 on sale. And this is still one of my favorite things to do, is to go into the PlayStation store and be like, I have $20, I'm going to buy 10 games, and let's just see what I can find. And I found a lot of really, really great games by doing that.
I like that. That sounds like a really fun challenge. I think we could spin that into episode themes, throwing a bit of podcast planning in the middle of the episode, but like having like an episode where in the past 2 weeks we spent $20 and talk about whatever we can buy and find.
Yeah,
I think that
it is a lot of fun, and you find a lot of strange things, and it's always fun for me to just like go through and watch trailers, because you don't know what a game is from just the thumbnail. So it's fun to watch the trailer and kind of look at it, see what the reviews are like, maybe look up a review online if it seems kind of interesting. Most of the time I don't care about reviews, though. I'm just like, well, this looks fun, I'm going to buy it, and if I waste $2 and I don't like it, then I wasted $2 and I don't like it. It's fine.
Yeah, that's fine. You still have the experience of having tried it and deciding you don't like it. That's valuable.
I did want us to talk briefly about some of our favorite games. I mentioned Resident Evil. That franchise is really, really special to me. I love those original games. And you mentioned Donkey Kong Country already. What are some of your other favorite games, like, of all time?
Yeah, if I go chronologically, like the earliest favorite game that I still have, like it's a bit hard. Like your favorite games will change.
Yeah, very much so
with the time and everything. But like there are games that I love from the GameCube, but I haven't played in like 15 years. So I don't feel like calling maybe Chibi Robo or Pikmin 1 some of my favorite games. Even I know that at the time they were some of my favorite games. Right now, I don't have enough connection with it to call them my favorite games. But the most earliest game I can remember beside the Donkey Kong Country games is Tetris Attack. I freaking love Tetris Attack. The fact that the game is like an indirect competition, so you do your own thing and you just have to survive the longest against someone else doing the same thing. That's the kind of competition I like, and Tetris, it just clicks with me, like the flow of seeing the patterns, trying to make combos, and then you have a couple seconds to just stay alive while you destroy all the garbage that you have on your head. And then it's like a dance where you have the garbage on your head, and then it's the other guy that has the garbage on his head.
Yeah.
I love that game.
Tetris Attack is kind of like Puyo Puyo in that same way, where it's like you have to focus on your board so much that you can't really worry about what your opponent is doing. And I'm pretty sure that Puyo Puyo is where they got the idea for Tetris Attack, because while the games are similar, the way that they construct their like matching system is so wildly different that you can't really call them the same game.
No, they're not the same game, but they're
for sure
in the same genre. And yeah, I love that genre. And compared to like something, I say Smash Bros, where you cannot just play your game. You have to anticipate and understand what your opponent might do. And if you do always the same thing, you won't always win. But if in Tetris Stack, if I last the longest, I'm gonna win all the time. So yeah, that's why I prefer that kind of competition over something more traditional.
And see, I love fighting games. I played, so one of my favorites is Soul Calibur 2. It's been one of my favorite fighting games since I first played it in an arcade. I've been wanting to buy a Soul Calibur 2 arcade cabinet, and they're not the most expensive thing to buy. I can get one in good condition for like $400 to $500, but while that's not like a lot of money in the grand scheme of things, that is a large purchase to make for something that I'm not going to play every day. And it's also a large amount of space that I have to somehow dedicate in my basement to having an arcade machine. I want one. I will buy one eventually. I wanted to get one this year. It didn't end up happening. Life got in the way. Maybe next year. But Soul Calibur 2 is an extremely fun fighting game. It was definitely my fighting game awakening, because I never got into Street Fighter or even Mortal Kombat. Like, I had played a little bit of like Marvel vs. Capcom 2 in arcades prior to Soul Calibur, and maybe a little bit of Tekken, but Soul Calibur really, there's something about the way that game flows in its combat that I really enjoy, and I don't know if I could put that into words on the spot of what I like about that game is specifically in comparison to.
There's a weight to it. Like, it's one of the few fighting games that I actually played on my GameCube. I think on the GameCube you can play with Link, if I remember correctly. And and I remember having a bit of fun with that game. Like, the spacing is kind of generous, since you can like turn around your opponent, and every character you feel the attack and everything. And it's not as fast as other fighting games, I believe. So I think maybe that's It in the end, it's just how you feel about the game. But I can see like the weight and the movement and everything being an appealing experience.
It's a great game. I really love that one. While we're talking about fighting games, one of my favorite indie games is Lethal League Blaze. We had talked about this actually on the In the Quest podcast that we had done with our friend Guido. Lethal League is such a cool spin on a fighting game where you're not actually fighting your opponent. You are, but you're fighting over an object that you're trying to hit into your opponent. And that little change in the way that the fights play out makes it insanely fun. I
totally agree. It's not in my list of favorite games, but if I had to pick my favorite fighting game, it's definitely one of the Lethal League games. It's just, like I said, the fact that you don't, like you said, I mean, the fact that you don't fight your opponent directly and you need to focus on the ball before focusing on the other player changes everything, and it just makes it work for me. I'm gonna continue.
Go ahead.
Did you want to say anything
else? No, I don't have anything else about Lethal League. That it's just a good game.
I'm gonna go in a completely different directions, but I freaking love Peggle.
Okay.
It's my like comfort game. Just watching the ball bounce around and just trying to plan your shots and then seeing the ball fall in the bucket. It's just pure. It's just pure wellness. I don't know. It's just pure fun. You just watch the ball and you hope you did the right decision at the time because all the control you have is the angle of your shot. And I like that it's so simple. Like, simplicity is something I really value in games. And being able to translate a pachinko experience into a very satisfying experience, for me, just so fun. And I played a lot of that on my Xbox 360. I played a lot of that. You can also play versus mode in Peggle. Like you each have, I think, 5 balls, and it's the one with the best score at the end that wins. So you have to decide where you shoot your ball to make a lot of points, but also not leave the best shot for your opponent on his next turn. And it's freaking fun. It's just dumb fun. I love Peggle.
Yeah.
And did you know that there's an official Peggle port in World of Warcraft?
I did not know that.
Yeah, there's an extension in. I think it works again in WoW Classic, but in World of Warcraft they released Peggle WoW, and basically the idea is that you can play Peggle while you're on your mount, going from places to places. You can just pop Peggle. It appears above your character, and just you literally play unique Peggle levels for World of Warcraft in World of Warcraft. I love that.
That's fun. I never would have guessed that was in WoW.
Yeah. And I'm going to go with the latest game that entered like my favorite games of all time, and that's Katana Zero.
Okay.
I played that earlier in the summer and downloaded it on a whim. Like, I started paying for Apple Arcade on my phone because I wanted to play the new Sonic game that released last year and never canceled my subscription. So now I feel obligated to play some Apple Arcade games every month.
Okay.
Yeah. And I discovered great games. And Katana Zero, I don't really know how to explain that, but it just clicked with me. It's the intense burst of puzzling action. It's just I couldn't get away from that game for like 2 weeks or something. It's just, I like the movement. I like that it's really fast paced. And at some point I was like, yeah, this game is way too freaking hard. But then I actually beaten the game on hard mode, which is
Oh wow.
way more crazy. You don't have a lot of margin of errors. But yeah, Katana Zero, it's an amazing 2D games. The story is told in a way that you have a lot of kind of agency. You can always cut the dialogue short of anyone you're talking to. So you're really deciding the flow of the game. If you want to really experience the story, you can read everything and then decide the right answer for every call. And you can also mash everything away and just speedrun the game. And yeah, it's an amazing game. I could talk about it more in details in the future, but yeah, Katana Zero is my latest favorite game. And just talking about it, I kind of want to just do a couple levels again.
I understand that feeling. Every time I start talking about Elden Ring, I start thinking that I should go back and play it again. I've beaten Elden Ring, I think, 5 times now. It's definitely my favorite of the Souls games. I did a challenge run of the game where I played it with using only a bow, which was very difficult. And yeah, it's the best Souls game that I have played for sure, without a doubt. It's really, really good. It's accessible too. It's not quite as difficult as like Dark Souls 1 or Demon Souls is, and I don't even think Demon Souls is quite that difficult once you understand how that game wants you to play it. But I think Elden Ring's open world structure really lends it to being accessible to new players, which helps a lot. So
yeah, the genre being so like well known now, they kind of have to find some ways to let new people in, because you cannot survive on just having the same fans buying your games over and over.
Well, and that's kind of funny because From Software did kind of just survive on their fans buying the same games over and over. Because,
yeah,
I mean, there's like 7 Armored Core games that were released on PS2, and I think only 2 of them used the dual analog sticks for aiming. Because in the original Armored Core and most of the Armored Core games up until I think Last Raven, you move with the D-pad, and then you aim up and down with R2 and L2, and you strafe with R1 and L1, and then you're using your face buttons for all of your different actions. It's an insane, absolutely insane control scheme that takes a really long time to actually like wrap your head around, but once you do, it makes sense and you can do it. But like, they just made those games for the longest time. FromSoft made some other games also, but they basically survived because of Armored Core for a very long time, and catering to only those fans and not changing even as the technology changed. Really, they didn't do much. So that's such a strange company, really is.
Yeah. It's strange fans too. I believe.
Yeah,
and that's funny. Like, the more we talk, all like you like some very well-known franchises like Resident Evil,
I do.
the Souls game, Soul Calibur, and I basically know nothing about those games. Like,
right.
I'm planning on playing my first. I'm planning on playing Dark Souls for the first time, like my first Souls game, somewhere during the end of the year. So I will join that discussion. But yeah, we're really on different sides of gaming. That's where we complement each other nicely, I think.
Yeah, I think so. And while I do really love a lot of these larger franchises and these big AAA games, it doesn't stop me from being able to just look at this weird little game that, you know, like I said, cost me $2, and
yeah,
I'll have fun playing that for the time that I'm playing it. So it's a strange dichotomy where a lot of people who only play, you know, the largest franchises really only stick to those large franchises, and I really think that there's a lot more out there, and you know, there's a lot more fun to be had when you step outside of like the constraints of what AAA has to offer. So
for sure. And there is also like a hipster mindset where those who only play like indie games might not foray into AAA gaming, but
right.
There's a lot of good things to learn from AAA games too. They're popular for a reason. They're good games in and of themselves, and you can like both. And yeah, I think that's fun.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Go for it.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Oh no, go ahead.
I was gonna continue the subject, so if you want to say anything about the AAA gaming stuff, you might want to go first.
No, it's fine. We could go down that rabbit hole another day.
All right. I was just gonna wrap up my favorite games quickly because the episode's getting a bit long. But yeah, if I were to decide my favorite indie game, it's called Flipping Dead. It's made by a studio in Montreal. I actually was there when they made the prototype for the game in the Game Jam in Quebec, and it's kind of Vampire Survivors before Vampire Survivors. Basically, there's like dozens of vampire zombies appearing on the playing field, and you're playing a cool little teddy bear, and you have to avoid all those zombies until there's Rainbow Crate, and then there's like a Pac-Man situation where you become the zombie and you can eat all the zombies that have become like naked men. It's an arcade game, and it's basically like Vampire Survivor but actiony. I think if they were to re-release it, I think it would be kind of popular. I think it would work in the current landscape of gaming, of like Vampire Survivor being kind of its own genre now. So
right.
I really, really like that game. I had like the high score on the whole world for a while because the game bugged me, and the game became easy again after like 35 minutes. Yeah, I freaking love that game. It's a very, very fun arcade game. And then Rapid Fire Crash 1. I first played that game with the remake on Switch like in 2018, and I fell in love mostly with the first game. I like the second game too. The third game, I don't care for it. There are just too many mini games and racing games and everything. Like half the game, you're not platforming in your platforming game. I think it's a bit dumb. But the
Spyro
first
the Dragon had the same problem.
Yeah,
where the third Spyro game, there's so many mini games that it takes away from just the pure platforming that was Spyro the Dragon.
Exactly.
So
And
I agree.
And the first one is very close to like the Donkey Kong Country formula. It's basically Donkey Kong Country, but with 3D sequences. You have to, it's like heavy on the platforming. There's a lot of enemies and you have to find a bit of secrets here and there. So I really, really like the first Crash game. And I even did, like in 2018, that was the time that the coinless Mario challenges that were popular on YouTube. And I did beat the game without collecting a single Wumpa fruit. Like I managed to find a way to avoid every fruit in the game and beat the game. So I really like that one. I also did the same thing in the second one. I love Crash Bandicoot.
That's actually quite impressive. That's an insane challenge.
Yeah, I could send you the video. I don't think I have put subtitles on the second one, but my first video I have endless subtitles. So if you're interested, I could send it your way. And finally,
yeah, that's fine.
One of the latest game that enter my favorite gaming pantheon is The Witness. And I played that game maybe in 2017, I believe. And The Witness is a puzzle game where you don't know the rules of the puzzle. So you're basically in first person and there's a bunch of screens and you have to figure out in each locations what are the rules of the puzzles by yourself to solve the puzzles. And that was like a big awakening moment for me. Like that was such a brand new experience. And I like puzzle games, but I really understood that I loved puzzle games by playing that Witness game at that time. And yeah, The Witness is so fun. It really kickstarted me in playing more puzzle games since then. And yeah, that's basically my favorite games. A lot of
I have one other game, and I'm just going to talk about it very, very briefly. It's a game called Graveyard Keeper. It's a very small indie. I'm not even going to say small, but it is an indie like pixel, like farming sim type game. But you're also trying to take care of a cemetery at the same time. And maybe some of my affiliation with this game comes from the fact that I worked in the funeral industry for 8 years. But I don't think that's actually quite the full story. Like, one of my biggest problems that I've always had with playing games like Harvest Moon and even the first Rune Factory, while I love them and I enjoy playing them, they don't give you a whole lot of direction as to like what you're supposed to be doing next. And what Graveyard Keeper does so well is it ties your skill trees and your tech trees and your leveling system directly to actual quests that need to be completed for the different villagers around the town, and interweaving them together to where you have to spend time, leveling up your farming to get a certain thing to be able to, make a certain type of wine to then be able to give it to this NPC to be able to continue a quest. And weaving those two things together makes this game very addictive and makes it to where you don't feel like you're just mindlessly farming forever. So that's why I like this game so much. It's extraordinarily well designed. It's a very, very fun game.
It looks very fun. It reminds me a bit of Kingdom for Keflings. I don't know if we talked a bit about that in the Discord in the last few days, but I don't know if you know that game. Probably not, because it was on Xbox 360 mostly. And like it's a bit like Graveyard Keeper in the sense that you have to build your own base and your own farming system, if you will. But you're like a giant and you're controlling those Keflings characters, and you say, you go mine there, you go get wood there, and then you're just giant building everything. And like you're talking, the skill tree is like it's kind of linear, so you cannot get lost in the game. The game is very objective focused, where you have to build those things in kind of those sequences, and then you have a couple of choices. And yeah, I think there's a bit of parallel of to make between those games, but yeah, that looks fun.
Okay, yeah, it's really good. Let's go ahead and get into talking about the games that we have been playing, which is going to be the primary segment of this show for most episodes. We're not always going to talk for 45 minutes about our past gaming experiences.
No, but yeah, we have to we have to give a bit of context to the people.
I think so, and I think it was an interesting enough discussion. So what we are planning on doing is talking about all the games that we've been playing or beating over the last couple of weeks, and then we're going to put them on a tier list, and we will eventually tweet out that tier list after the podcast goes live. That way, if anybody wants to reference it at a later point in time, they have access to kind of a summary of our thoughts about the games.
Yeah, I think it's going to be fun just saying how our opinion are treated that way.
Yeah, I think that'll be interesting. And we both have the same number of games, but Max, two of my games I'm going to talk about at the same time. So if you want to go first, you can go ahead and go first. And
I'm going to go first. Yeah. I'm going to start with an easy, weird game. It's called Homo Evolution. And that's a game from, I think, 2018 or something. And basically, I started playing that because it's free on YouTube. I don't know if you're aware that there are games on YouTube nowadays.
I've seen that, and I've not clicked on any of them.
Yeah, I've played a couple ones. I played through the first Cut the Rope on there, and I played a racing game there too. And now my new addiction was Homo Evolution. It was, I think it just came on the YouTube Playables platform in the last couple of weeks. So that was new. So it said like new game. So I clicked on it because it looked colorful, and I sent you an image. Like every character is kind of funny looking and eye contrast. And basically it's just a clicker game. And the way that the clicking works is that you're receiving new creatures. At first it's like animals, and then they transform into humans. And then those humans, you have like a skill tree where you decide if you want to build like the TV section of evolution or the science section of the evolution tree line of humanity.
Okay.
And what's fun about this game is that the clicking sequence go like in intervals. So there are 6 different planets in the game. And the first planet, you decide on one of those skill trees. And at the end of that skill tree, it starts to get slow. Because at first you get 1 coin, 2 coins, 3 coins. But then in the end, you need like 1 billion coins to buy the last character. But once you buy the second planet, then it kind of restarts. So every like day or two of playing, you actually starts getting that dopamine again, where the clicking just goes super fast, and you get new characters every 5 minutes. And I like that short form clicking action where every now and then it just goes super fast. And yeah, the game is just a clicking game. So I was playing that like in the background while I was working, or just going to get my new characters here and there.
Right.
And it did exactly that, exactly right. The game is kind of sexy too, but like not really sexy, just sexy in like in a cartoon way. Like if you were to watch Looney Tunes and the nurses have like big boobs, that's just that kind of sexiness.
Right.
The image I shared, there's a lot of censored bars. I think that's like official artwork. So there's a lot of like funny big boobs in a cartoony way. And discovering those new characters is the fun of the game. You just click away, watch the numbers go up. And what I also like, that there's kind of a strategy that if you want to optimize your clicking and everything, you can choose different kind of rewards that come every like 6 hours. And those rewards, if you choose them, they will give you a copy of the best character that you already have. So I I didn't really explain the clicking mechanic, but basically it's a merging game. So if you have two lizards, you merge them, they become a dinosaur. And then you merge two dinosaurs, they become an ostrich. And two ostrich, they became like a monkey. Or so you just have to grind characters and you merge the same characters to get a better character that will give you more money.
Okay.
So if you optimize those boxes that you get every 6 hours, you can go through the game like really quickly. And I like just being able to let the game run in the background, figuring out like the strategy to reach the end game where you get all the characters. And that's what I did. I basically beat in the game. I've gotten every character for every evolutionary line. And I think there's like a side end goal of getting infinity money. So I might keep that in the background for a little while, just try to get that infinity money thing. But yeah, it's just a fun clicking game. And if you want to waste a bit of time on YouTube in the background, I can recommend Evolution. It's just a silly fun time.
Okay. It sounds interesting. I'm not big on clickers. Like, I don't find myself in a place where, like, I have the opportunity to kind of mindlessly just play something. So yeah. I don't think it's something that I would personally be interested in, but I can see the appeal for sure.
Yeah, and like I don't play a lot of idle games either. And though this clicker, why I continued playing it is basically because I saw that there was an end goal that wasn't too far away. Like,
okay.
Only having 6 planets and seeing that the planet, every time you get a new planet, it goes really fast and you basically get half of that evolutionary line in like 30 minutes. That kept it fun for me. Like, I wouldn't have kept that for like 2 months in the background, not knowing if there was even an end game. But seeing that this was like kind of a short version of a clicker game, that made it fun for me.
Okay. Excellent. Where do you want to put it on the tier list?
I think I would drop it in This Is Fine. It's a fine game. Like, I wouldn't personally recommend that game to like everybody go play this, but if you have the time, if you have the envy of playing a quirky little game in the background, that's perfectly fine.
Okay. All right. So I'm gonna take my double header here right now. I'm going to talk about SD The Great Battle 2 and SD The Great Battle 4. These are Super Famicom games that never got released in the United States. There's a whole series of these games. They're all English friendly, so you can import them without a problem and play them without a problem. There is a story. I don't know what it is because I don't read Japanese. Each one of the games is a little bit different, so I'm going to start with SD The Great Battle 2. It is a beat-em-up. So you play as a combination of Ultraman, Kamen Rider, and a Gundam, and then one other character that I don't remember who it is. And these are all like hyper-popular franchises in Japan. And they all come together to like form this weird little universe. SD stands for Super Deformed, which is a chibi art style. So you're playing as these little chibi characters, and in SD The Great Battle 2, you're walking from left to right on a not 3D plane, but pseudo 3D plane, like most beat 'em ups are, like Streets of Rage or Golden Axe, where you can kind of move up and down across the screen, but you're mostly just moving to the right. You're punching enemies, you're defeating bosses, and you're playing through levels. It's pretty good. It's not got very deep mechanics. It's basically just mashing the punch button. You have a special move, that a clear screen move, and like that helps against bosses and against large hordes of enemies. The different enemies are, they have different patterns and whatnot. It's not a very complex game. It's just a beat 'em up.
Yeah,
like this game it's fine. I like it. I like that I have it because I do collect for the Super Famicom. It's the only like cartridge-based console that I actually collect for, just because I think it's cool to have Japanese cartridges rather than like American Super Nintendo cartridges. Are kind of blocky and kind of ugly, honestly. Like, I like them. I like how blocky they are, but the Japanese cartridges are round and smooth, and they look nice.
It's a beautiful cartridge.
Yeah. SD The Great Battle 4, I think, is a much better game. It is a 2D platformer, and you have all the same characters. Same 4 characters. The 4th one, who I still do not remember who it is. And except this time, you're playing through 2D platformer levels, and each one of your characters has a different gun and a different special ability. So, like, one of them has a high-powered, like, rocket launcher. One of them has a machine gun that shoots really fast but doesn't do a lot of damage. And one of them has, like, a shot that, like, bounces across the ground. So each one of these weapons are good against different enemy types, and then each of their special attacks, I think they have a special attack, but each of them have a special move. And each of those special moves are needed for certain platforming sections of the game. So, like, your Gundam can kind of float in the air for a little while by doing a double jump. So he will allow you to be able to cross large gaps. So one of your guys, I think it's Ultraman, can, like, jump on walls kind of like you can in Super Metroid. So you can climb up walls by doing that. One of the guys can roll into a ball to get through small areas. So you have to switch in between all of your characters to progress through these platforming stages. And you just switch by pressing Y. And you can switch at any point in time. And you have a combined health bar for all 4 of your characters also, so it's not like Ninja Turtles where you're switching and each one has a different health bar. But so you play through all these levels, and then when you get to a boss fight at the end of each level, it goes into, like, a mech fighting game mode where essentially you and the boss are, like... Did you ever play... I think it was the Power Rangers fighting, like, Mechazoid fighting game that was on Sega Genesis. I think that's the one that I'm thinking of.
Yeah, I know. I haven't played that.
Okay. Essentially, it goes into this view where it's like your giant Voltron-esque mech versus the enemy's mech, and you really slowly kind of, like, punch and use special attacks and try and defeat your opponent. It's kind of slow and it's kind of clunky. Oh, it's kind of like Goemon. Yeah, actually, if you ever played Goemon,
I've seen
it's
that.
kind of like that.
Yeah,
and I just thought about that.
And there's a good reason you don't remember the 4th character, because it's an original character for the series of Great Battle games. It's Fighter Roar, and it's an original character.
Oh, right on. Thank you for looking that up. But yeah, so you get into, like, these mech battles and you do, like, Street Fighter type combos because you're on a 2D fighting plane. So, like, back roll forward plus X will do a special attack, or down roll forward will do a special attack. And it's really fun. I've gotten to the final boss of this game, and it's 3 phases. So you have a normal 2D platformer final boss stage, and then he goes into the mech stage, and you beat him as a mech, and then you have to beat him as a mech again, all on the same health bar. It's really hard.
That sounds brutal.
It's tough. I've tried, like, I don't know, 15, 20 times, because there's a password system, so I can just go back to the final level, but that means then you'll play through the whole final level again to get back to the final boss.
With a good
and
health
that takes,
bar.
it's not, it doesn't take long. It takes maybe, 3 to 5 minutes, but I have to get there with a good health bar. I have to get there, make sure that I have enough lives to where if I die, I can try again. It's been a pain trying to actually finish this game. The beat 'em up, SD The Great Battle 2, I've also gotten to the final boss, and he's also very difficult, and have not been able to beat him either. I don't know if I'm actually going to end up beating these games. I want to, because I've beaten the first one before. I think with a little bit more persistence, I'll be able to actually get through them. I'm going to try. I'm going to keep trying at them. If I get through them, I'll let you know. If not, they'll never come back to the podcast.
That's fine. That sounds interesting. And, like, having those mech fights after the platformer section, that sounds like a good translation of those TV shows in a gaming format.
It is a good translation of the shows, for sure. I've never watched Ultraman, but I'm culturally aware of it because of, like, how much anime I've consumed over the years and how much Japanese, stuff I've watched over the years. So, like, I'm aware of it. I've never really sat down to watch Ultraman specifically, or Kamen Rider. But I did watch a little bit of Power Rangers growing up, and that's Super Sentai, so it's the same idea.
Yeah, same gist.
Yeah.
So where did they go in the tier
So
list?
SD The Great Battle 4, I think, deserves to go into our great games on the A tier, and the beat 'em up number 2 is going into this is fine. The beat 'em up it's fine. It's not as good though. I wish it were a little bit better. That's kind of all I have to say about those games.
Yeah.
They're good. I do recommend checking them both out.
They sound like a fun. And I'm gonna
Real quick, they're also not super expensive if you have a Super Famicom and you want to import cartridge only versions of them. You can get them for like $20 or $30 a piece, which is not bad. I think complete in box they might be like $70 or $80, which is more than I'm willing to pay, but for Super Nintendo games that are actually pretty good, that's not a bad price these days.
I'm gonna continue the trend of anime stuff. I'm gonna talk about Medabots Rokusho version, the GBA RPG, which is very unlike me. I don't play a lot of RPGs, but this one is close to my heart. Did you watch? Are you familiar at all with the Medabots series?
I am not.
So basically, I watched a bit of Medabots when it came out. So basically, it's kind of Pokemon, but with robots. So the main character gets his robot, and each robot kind of have a soul thing with a medallion, and then they fight the evil away. So it's very simple anime stuff.
Okay.
And what's kind of interesting about this game is that it's a remake of a Game Boy Color game, or even my original Game Boy game that predates Pokemon. So it feels like Pokemon, but it predates Pokemon. So that's kind of interesting.
Okay.
And the main gimmick of the RPG is that there's a very interesting active battle system. So you have a 2D grid, and you can have up to 3 robots, and the way that the active battle system is represented is that your robot is going to physically run to the middle of the screen, and when they reach the middle of the screen, that's when they do their attack. And then they go back to your base on the left. So when they're on the left, you need to decide what kind of attack you want to do. Some attacks will target some robots on the other side and specific parts of those robots. So if in the meantime their parts get destroyed by another one of your robot, then your attack will fail because you will have mismanaged your attacks order and everything. And I think that's a very fun way of representing an RPG battle, physically seeing your robots running around and doing their attacks in order. That said, the game is so freaking long. The game, like, the active battle system is fun, but after like 20 hours of seeing the same animations of robots going around left to right, it's a chore. It's a chore. Every battle can take up to like 5 or 6 minutes. It's insane. And the only reason that I've actually finished this game, well, there are 2 reasons. One reason is because I needed to beat a 50-hour game for the Polykill Bingo Challenge. We might go, for those who know, they know. But if you don't know, we will talk about the Polykill Bingo Challenge another time. But basically, I had a challenge to beat a game of at least 50 hours.
This game was 50 hours?
This game is exactly 50 hours on how long to beat.
Oh, man.
Well, actually, I cheated a bit. This one is 35 hours, but it's like Pokemon. So there are 2 versions. There's a Rokusho version and the Metabay version. And the Metabay version on how long to beat is 50 hours. And my final time on this game was over 50 hours. It was like 52 hours long.
Okay.
So the first reason I've beaten the game, there's that. The second reason, I'm going to go to 3 reasons. The second reason is because that's a game I played a lot when I was younger. It's like one of the first ROM games that I discovered by myself that I really got attached to. And basically, when I played it on emulator, there's a section where you have to mash the button because there's a mini game where your robots are just running one against each other. It's just a race, and the way you race is just by mashing the buttons. And at the time, I couldn't do it, so I stopped playing it. And they re-released those games on Wii U in the Virtual Console, so I bought that game in like 2013, played I think 7 hours, and fell off. So I picked up my 10-year-old save, and I started grinding the game away. And that brings me back to... So I really wanted to see the end of this game because I played the first like 5 hours so many times. So I really wanted to see the end of the game. And in the end, what saves this game is that they really push the robot angle of the game. So the fighting of... So basically, you can build your own robot. So there are 4 different parts that you can change. You can change the legs, each arm, and in the head of your robot, and each of those parts will have different capabilities. Some will be range attacks, other will be melee attacks. Some will always hit where the other character, but there are more defensive options against those type of attacks. Some attacks will just buff the speed of your character. So you build your robot. And in the fighting, you can automate your robot. So there's a section where you can decide, okay, on the first turn, my robot is going to do his left arm attack, and then it's going to do the head attack, and then it's going to build up his super attack, and then it's going to do the super attack. So you can turn this game a bit into an idle game. So you just play the story, and whenever you go into a battle, you just start your programming of your robots, and they fight. On the side, well, you can do something else. So that was before Homo Evolution. That was a game that I was running in the background while I was working. So I would just move from fight to fight and work while my robots were fighting in the back of my head. And that it really saves the game because 50 hours of this shit is way too long. The story is completely dumb. The fighting is super repetitive. You're always fighting the same robots again and again. But the fact that you don't have to play half the game to finish the game makes it tolerable. And in the end, I had fun. Like, I was done at about 35 hours. And I've done the 15-hour more of the post-game content. Basically, to reach the 50-hour thing of the challenge. And because I wanted to see everything that this game had to offer. But it's fun. It's just way too long, but it's fun.
Okay. I mean, that sounds interesting. The way you're describing the combat system kind of reminds me of the Mega Man Battle Network games that were also on Game Boy Advanced. I don't know if you ever played those.
Yeah, I played those, and it's a bit of the same, but the Battle Network games are more active. Like, you're moving on the grid, and you're evading the attacks by yourself. While this game, once you've selected your attack, then you're waiting for the action to be done. Okay.
And I mean, it sounds fine, I guess.
Yeah, I'm very torn on this game. I don't know where to put it on I guess I'm gonna put it in. This is fine again. Like, the start of the game is a great game. I would put it in A. If the game was 10 hours long, I think I would put it in A. And if there were not automations, this would go in, or even back in the trash because it's way too long. But the fact that you can mitigate this long playtime, and the fact that I have an emotional connection with this game, I think it's gonna go in. This is fine. This one too.
Yeah, that's fair. It's totally fair. Next game that I want to talk about is a game called Drive Girls. This is a PS Vita exclusive. This game it's made by, I think, the same team that makes the Senran Kagura games, which I don't know if you're familiar with them. They're relatively popular, I would say, like anime-based series.
Okay.
Drive Girls is not that good. It starts out Drive Girls starts out really, really strong. It has the story has something to do with like this girl wanting to be a part of like the like police defense force, and she ends up getting conned into being a part of this other like more exclusive team called the Drive Girls. And the story doesn't fucking matter, honestly. So when you start out the first game, or the first couple of levels, it's a level based like hack and slash action game. When you start out the first couple of levels, you're fighting against these creatures. They call them bugs. So it kind of reminds me in a way of like a mix between Earth Defense Force, where in Earth Defense Force you're fighting against like actual insects, like giant insects, like giant wasps and ants and things like that. Except in this, you're not fighting against like monstrous sized animals. You're fighting against like these weird mutated, like almost half human sized animals, and they just call them bugs. And these first couple of levels, you're fighting against like hordes and hordes and hordes of them, like a Musou game, like a Dynasty Warriors, where you're just hacking and slashing and going to town on massive hordes of these enemies, which is fun because you're building like by attacking multiple enemies at the same time, you're building your special meter, which allows you to do bigger and flashier special moves. As you move later into the game, you're fighting against less hordes and more individual larger enemies, and those enemies can do things like move extraordinarily fast, faster than your combos are able to hit them, faster than your lock-on and camera are really able to track them.
This is insane.
Yeah, it becomes nearly unplayable in the later levels of the game, which is extraordinarily frustrating.
Yeah, I bet it is.
So
it looks like a very thirsty game.
It wants to be, but it doesn't. So like Senran Kagura kind of leans into that the more fan service thirsty side of anime. This game doesn't. Like the characters are kind of like they're the typical, you know, waifu-ish anime girls, but it doesn't lean into that at all. Those are just like their outfits that they wear. Why? I don't know. They wear them from the first time you're introduced to them until the end of the game, and no explanation is ever given as to why they're wearing these weird, outlandish outfits. It's completely ridiculous.
They just want you to pick up the cover by having those characters.
I think, yeah. So there's a lot of things also that like the game doesn't tell you that would be really helpful for you to know, that I had to go onto GameFAQs to find answers to. So there's a variety of different combos of attacks. So you have your normal light attack with square, your heavy attack with triangle. You have actual combos between pressing, like tapping and holding square in various different combos. So like press, hold square is a certain attack string. And then like press, hold square is a different attack string. You know, square, hold triangle is a different attack string. Game doesn't tell you any of this. Game doesn't tell you that pressing up on the D-pad locks onto your enemy. Game doesn't tell you that tapping the screen on your Vita changes the weapon that you're using to a ranged weapon. I didn't know that for the first 20 of 24 levels that I played of this game.
Wow.
I genuinely don't understand like where the design considerations came from of like the actual mechanics of how they implement things into this game. It's baffling, because if the game would just tell me that I could use a ranged weapon, or tell me like what the upgrades that I have access to actually do, then I would probably find more fun in this game. But instead it doesn't. So and that leads me into another thing. There's this whole system of each one of your girls has an upgrade tree that they call gears. And you buy the gears from the shop. You earn money from beating levels and defeating enemies and collecting items throughout the levels and whatnot. You can buy these gears and you can put them into one of 3 stats. Game doesn't tell you what those stats do. I still don't know what they are. There's like power, speed, and something else with no explanation of what putting any of my gears into those stats does. There's an armor system. The armors add various buffs, and they give you like a 10% buff to, you know, attack speed, or 10% buff to defense or whatever. And like those are self-explanatory. The problem is with the armor system also is that they have this whole trade system where like there's super powerful armors that you can unlock by trading in like 50 of these weaker armors. But by the end of the game, I didn't have 50 of the weaker armors. So there's no incentive for me to ever trade these in to get the more powerful armors because I can beat the game without ever getting them. It's just baffling in so many ways.
It sounds like the game was halfway done making and they just released it because it sounds half-baked on every aspect.
I would not be surprised if that was the case. I basically skipped through all the story. It was mediocre. I don't have much else to say, honestly, about this game. I would say avoid it. I don't think it's the worst thing ever, though. That's the funny thing. It's I'm going to put this in our C tier, our meh tier, because I don't think it's actually terrible. Like, this is not the worst game I've ever played. There's some value here. Probably not if you're buying a physical copy on Vita, because Vita games are extraordinarily expensive. And I don't recommend anybody going out and spending their money on this game. But there are ways to just have access to Vita games on your PlayStation Vita. And if you have even the slightest interest in like a kind of mediocre anime hack and slash game, I've played worse of those than Drive Girls.
Yeah, it sounds like you could have fun for an hour or so, just smashing away weird stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, you could have fun for an hour. I played it for 10, but...
Maybe that's your problem.
Maybe.
All right, my next game is going to be very quick. It's called MonkeyBash, and it's on the Mega Touch. Do you know what the Mega Touch is?
No. I don't. What is a Mega Touch?
Mega Touch is a bar-top arcade machine, and it's a touch-based screen arcade machine.
Okay.
So basically those were like around mid-2000s in the arcade, in the bars, just sitting there, and you could put like $1 or so and play some mini games. And there were some loot stuff, some like Pong where you get some naked girls behind the Pong game. And I actually have a Mega Touch.
Okay.
I bought, that's the last insane gaming thing I bought in the last 10 years, and that's a Mega Touch last year, because I discovered the Mega Touch last year in a bar, not a barcade, but just an arcade place, and it felt so weird that after 30 years I had no idea what that was. It felt like being in another dimensions, being game from somewhere else.
Okay.
So yeah, long story short, I went on an arcade spree with my brother. I could talk to you about that in another time, but I went on an arcade spree, and one of the last places where we went, there was a Mega Touch. So that's last year we discovered the Mega Touch, my brother and I, so we decided to go play that again. And MonkeyBash is basically like the Yeti Sports game. You have, I believe, a clown, and you hit a monkey, and you have to hit the monkey the furthest away, and it's all luck based. So you hit the monkey, and then you watch it go to the right. If he gets trampolines, he gets higher. He gets he just goes farther away. And if you hit a bomb or a crate, then your run is done. And basically, you have to get 5 good games in 5-minute period. So you have like a 5-minute session where you can just whack your monkey away, and your 5 best scores are accumulated together, and that's your high score. And we played that game for like an hour or so, my brother and I, and we were trying to get the high score in the machine. We got really, really close, and in the end we were like, do we stop? And my brother was like, come on, let's do one last run, and then we'll go to the final arcade place. And on our very last one, we managed to get the high score and beat an high score that was there for like the last 3 years on the machine, and we beat it by like 2 points. We got very, very lucky. And Yeah, it's just that you start a game and you click and try to get a high score with your monkey. It's so freaking dumb. And it's gonna sound insane, but to me, that's a great game. And it's a great game, not in the grand scheme of things, but it's a great game for a bar top game. You just get your beer and whack the monkey away, and you get super hyped when you get a lucky row of trampolines. And it's just, for the context, it's a perfect game.
I completely understand. Like, a game for that context of, oh, we're hanging out, we're having a couple of drinks, and we're just trying to have a good time. This sounds perfect.
Exactly. It's just dumb fun watching your monkey go away, and yeah, and it's on a weird arcade machine. I love that.
Right on. Yeah. Now, when you're talking about this arcade machine, I think I remember seeing like little arcade, like bar top arcade machines at a few bars when I was like in my early 20s, but I didn't really go out drinking that often, so I didn't go to like the popular places that would have necessarily had something like this.
I think they were mostly used for like their slot machine games, even though they don't give away money.
Right.
I think it felt like slot machines and not arcade games, but there are a few cool arcade games on there. There's this funny thing, but there's a Minipod game, Arkanoid clone. So there's fun stuff to find on this.
Right on. Yeah, that's fucking cool. So my next game, another anime game. It's called Kandagawa Jet Girls. This game I think the release of this coincides with the release of an actual anime. Like, this is a licensed game that was released side by side with the series itself. I've not watched the series, and I don't really know anything about it, so I can't speak to that. I remember when the game released, I think the game came out in 2021 or 2022, and I remember seeing advertisements for it on the PlayStation Network, and it was like not a AAA game. It was like brand new for $40. And I was like, oh, that looks interesting. It looks interesting enough that I would be interested to play it, but not for $40. At least not digitally. And I ended up buying it digitally not that long ago for like $8 on sale, which is a reasonable price considering the physical copies of this game go for quite a bit more than that nowadays, because it had a limited release here in the United States in like only a special edition that comes with a bunch of extra shit. I'm going to start out by saying the best thing about this game absolutely is the soundtrack. It's insane how good the music in this game is, and I kind of want to buy a physical copy of it just because it comes with the 2-disc soundtrack for this game. It is that good.
What kind of music is it?
It's absolutely like upbeat, up-tempo, like, I don't know, kind of synth pop. Yeah. Not quite synth pop, but I've got it
playing in the back now, and it sounds a bit like Sega-ish. Like, it's like Sonic music, right?
Yeah, kind of. It's very upbeat, like upbeat video game music. If you looked for upbeat video game music, something from this game is probably going to come up. And that's probably the best thing about this game. It's a racing game on jet skis, kind of similar to Wave Race 64, except mixed with like Mario Kart Double Dash. So you have two characters on the same jet ski at the same time. You have one person controlling the jet ski and then one person controlling a weapon on the back. In this case, it's a water gun, and they're shooting the water gun at other people in the race. There are item boxes along the racetrack that give you more powerful weapons. Stuff like a sniper rifle that can shoot enemies from far away, a rocket launcher that does big damage. When you or an enemy racer takes damage, essentially your shield breaks and you stop for a momentary period of time, 2 or 3 seconds, and then you're able to start racing again, just like Mario Kart. So it's Mario Kart mixed with a wave race. It controls really well. You have a drift that allows you to, drift around corners. That builds up a boost. Once you release the drift, Well, it's not actually release the drift because you tap to start drifting and then tap to release the drift and use the boost. You use the boost, you get a boost of speed. You have a secondary meter that builds up as you're racing, and also when you travel through rings that are on the race course, they increase this extra meter. It's essentially a boost meter. You press X to use the boost. If you build up that boost meter all the way to 100%, like you haven't used any of that boost, you get a special attack. You can shoot any of these weapons forward or backwards. I didn't mention that, but that is a consideration. So if you have an enemy right behind you, you can essentially shoot it back behind you to shoot at them instead of in front of you. All of that is really fun. The problem with this game is that it just becomes very repetitive, and it's too long for how few tracks and how long this game wants to be. So there are 7 or 8 different race teams of the 2 girls, and each one of those teams have their own storyline. You play through the first characters, or the first 2 characters' storyline, and you play through their 12 races. And each one of those races is essentially against one of the other primary teams and a bunch of other random NPCs. And then after each of the races, there's a visual novel story exposition that I've completely skipped because the story is garbage and I don't care about it. So I've been skipping all of it. So you play through the race. The races are fine. They're like 3 to 5 minutes to complete 2 to 3 laps, depending on the track. All of that is fine. The problem is that there's only like 6 or maybe 8 tracks, and they are slightly varied in like their terms of pathing. So like in one variation of the track, this turn might be a left and then it loops back around to the main path. Or it might be you don't have that big loop and you just take the right and you go on along the main path. And that's where this game really starts to falter.
Yeah.
If this game had more racetracks, it would be extremely fun. Because like the initial playthrough of playing through the first character's storyline of those first 12 races is great. But then you have to play through 7 other characters or 7 other teams of all of the same races again and get their story.
I understand. The game is too long for it. So good.
Honestly, I don't have much else to say about it other than that. Like, there's upgrades that you can get for your jet skis. Once you buy some of those upgrades, the game becomes, in my opinion, far too easy. Like, the last couple of races that I've participated in, I have so many upgrades that I get out ahead of the pack within, like, the first 30 seconds of the race, and then I'm just maneuvering the course on my own without seeing a single other racer for the next 3 minutes. And that's also a problem. Like, rubber banding in racing games has always kind of been a problem where, like, you don't want too much rubber banding to where it feels like the opponents are actually cheating and always getting ahead of you. But you don't want too little rubber banding to where, like this game, you get so far ahead of the pack that it feels like it's not fun anymore. And this game leans into that second side of the rubber banding argument for a racing game. I think it's fine if you wanted to pick this up as, like, if you want another game that plays like, Wave Race, but with an anime aesthetic, I think this game is fine and would be fun to play, like, with your friends multiplayer, because I think it does have split screen multiplayer, but as a single player game, it's not great. It wears out its welcome really fast. So I'm going to put this one into the B tier. This is fine. Because I think it is fine.
Yeah.
But it's got problems.
That sounds a very fair assessment of the game.
Okay.
So for me, I'm going to have a last game to talk about today. And I'm going to talk about The Legend of Zelda, The Missing Link. So this is a fan game for the Nintendo 64, fan game of Ocarina of Time. And the game basically tries to bridge the gap between Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. It's a 3-hour experience, very normal Ocarina stuff, that takes place right after Ocarina of Time, and you kind of go on a little adventure meeting the Deku people. You're seeing like the story of the fairies getting kidnapped by the Skull Kid, and you're basically investigating why are the fairies missing, and that's how you get to fall in the hole and get through the Majora's Mask story. And the game is a very fun, very, very fun fan game. I'm a huge fan of Majora's Mask, and I like Ocarina of Time, but to me, it's just a bit long. Like, I would have taken like 1 or 2 dungeon less. Like, if you remove the water dungeon and maybe the spirit dungeon, to me, it would be like the perfect game the people are talking about. But to me, it becomes a bit repetitive in the end. But this 3-hour experience is very tight. It's all new locations, new music. There's even new items. I won't really spoil it because it's something that I guess most people won't have played. But there's a unique item at the end that is kind of janky, but it's very fun to try out. And it's just more Ocarina of Time. It's more Ocarina of Time. You go through like 2 towns, 1 dungeon, and you're done. And it's a very compact story, and I like all the decisions that were taken story-wise to bridge the gap through Majora's Mask. It all makes sense, and it's fun, like imagining that this is the canon of what happens to Link, and it could very, very well be a canon episode. It's that good. But I still have 2 main complaints. The first complaint is that it relies a lot on the bomb chews. I don't know if you remember the bomb chews in those games, but yeah. So you drop your mouse bomb thing, and then it just wiggles around. And there's a lot of puzzles where everything that's farther away in the main game, you would use the slingshot or the arrow, the bow and arrow to solve those puzzles. But in this one, you need to use the bomb chew, and sometimes it's just a hassle. You drop them down on the ground, and they just go where the fuck they want. It's so annoying.
Yeah, they're always kind of a pain for me, and I know like modern speedrunners have kind of gotten to the point where they completely understand like the mechanics of how a bomb chew actually works. And I think for a more casual player, we've just never gotten to that point to fully understand.
So those puzzles
where those things
like
are
I
actually
know the solution,
go.
but I just can't execute it. So that's a bit annoying. And the other thing, there's a bit of, I don't want to say bad designs, but there's a bit of jank or like obscure knowledge that I didn't have that made me stuck in 2 places. Like, I didn't remember that you could roll into crates to destroy them, and there was a switch hidden behind the crate, and to me, there couldn't have been a switch at that place because I didn't know I could destroy that crate. So I ran around for like 20 minutes before checking a long play, and I was like, oh, okay, I didn't remember that mechanic. And same thing, there's some gaps that you need to cross with the bunny ears thing, and at first you can just run up the edges and it makes you jump.
Okay.
It makes you jump longer, so that's fine. But during the dungeon, that doesn't work. So I was trying to find a new item or trying to bring a chicken from outside the dungeon into the dungeon to cross larger gaps. But actually, there's a mechanic where if you roll off the edge, you will jump farther. And I just didn't know that. I haven't played enough Ocarina of Time in the last 10 years to remember that this was a mechanic. So I was stuck again for like half an hour, not knowing what to do in the dungeon just because I didn't know that mechanic.
Yeah, that sounds like the same kind of thing where, like I was just talking about, where like speedrunners and people who have played Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask so much will know, oh, I can just roll and jump and I'll go a little bit farther. but a more casual player
Yeah,
wouldn't
exactly.
know that that's a thing that actually happens.
But if you can, like,
I can
if
see
you
that
can
being
take my
frustrating.
advice and remember those two things and accept a little bit of jank with the last item, to me, this game, I'm going to put it right in the S tier. Like, I know there's a bit of caveats with those things, but I had such a great time, and being done just by a couple of guys in a fan game, a rum hack, and being this good, it deserves all the praises. It's an absolute banger.
Excellent. I love it. I don't play. I don't really do emulation or ROM hacks or anything like that. So this is one that I'll look into when I eventually upgrade my computer to be more powerful, so that I can actually try and do some stuff like
emulation
that.
stuff with. I have an iPhone right now, mostly because there's a good camera on the iPhone. So I've taken an iPhone to film my videos, and there were no emulators up until like this summer. And now there are emulators on the iPhone, and I have a Bluetooth 8-bit DO controller, so I can just connect that controller to my phone, drop the phone on the table, and play a bit of Zelda before going to bed. And yeah, it works very well.
Awesome. All right, hobby time. All right, so for me, I only have a couple of things that I've been kind of working on. So I've been making some headstones for Halloween decorations, and the reason I'm making them is because most of the like foam headstones that you get from like the like big box stores, like whether it's Target or Spirit Halloween or whatnot, like those kind of headstones are made out of a type of styrofoam called expanded polystyrene, which is packing foam. It's all of those little small balls of styrofoam packed together and then kind of heated and fused to make a styrofoam brick that is then shaped into whatever shape. That type of styrofoam is very weak and very brittle. And I've been playing Warhammer for a long time, and I've made a bunch of terrain for my Warhammer boards. And what we use in the terrain making world is a separate type of polystyrene called extruded polystyrene, which is basically the same chemical formula, but instead of being all of those little balls compacted together, is a solid sheet of styrofoam as one solid piece. So I cut out and have spray painted a base coat of primer onto some headstones that I made. They're about 1.5 foot wide by 2 foot tall, so they're not large or anything. They're obviously decorations. But this type of styrofoam is it's a little bit tougher. It will stand up to the rain a little bit better. As it's called, extruded polystyrene is used as primarily a building material for construction. It's a type of insulation. So it's very tough, it's very rigid, and it won't snap very easily. So I've made 4 of these. I have them. They've been primered with spray paint. They're ready to go. All I have to do is do the final paint job on them. And they'll end up going up in the yard with some metal stakes sticking up into them. So I'm excited for that. They're gonna look really good.
So cool. What did you write on them?
2 of them I just wrote RIP into them, and then the other 2 are just blank headstones. They'll just get painted with a variety of grays. I'll have some pictures up on our socials. They're just black right now, but I'll have some pictures up very soon of what they end up looking like.
Cool. That sounds very, very fun, and you have a lot of knowledge of that, all of that thing. So
yeah,
that's super interesting. And that reminded me of when I was young. There was actually I don't know how to say that in English, but the person that helps you cross the road when you're in primary school.
So a crossing guard?
Yeah, the crossing guard. So basically the crossing guard near my house, her house was very near So we did trick or treat at her house when we were young, and she had a tombstone in front of her yard that said, "Baby, this baby died playing Nintendo." So this was just like the tombstone in front of her. It was always so funny to me. Just so random. Like how did that happen?
Right.
It's so weird. But yeah, it reminded me of that. I didn't think about this tombstone in a while. So
That's fun. That's interesting. I love it.
on my hand, yeah.
Yeah.
Did you want to continue?
No, I was about to ask you what you've been working on. So go ahead.
Yeah, so I've been working a lot, actually making cards. It's kind of my project for the year. I try to find a good procedure to make playing cards. And basically, in the long run, I have an idea for a board game. I would like to print myself because I think it's fun building all the components from scratch. And so I try to find something to make great cards. And right now, my project is to turn a Pico 8 game called High Stakes. So it's like a gambling game. So the idea, you would have someone being the dealer with like a set of positions for their cards. So you dispose 9 cards on the table, and basically it's a guessing game. You turn cards around, and based on the information that you have, you can gain more information to try to avoid the vampire, so the bad card from the lot. And if you find the bad card when you don't want to, well, you lose your tokens. But if you manage to turn around all the other cards except the vampire, then you win your round. And I think it would work very well as a card game, but I just cannot find the right paper for the job. So I've bought some like heat adhesive in big sheets. So my procedure works. So I basically print the front of my card inside a rectangle, so it's all spaced out evenly. Then I print the back of my card with the same procedure in the rectangle. I cut the rectangle, and then I glue the heat adhesive on one side, and then I can glue both sides together. And so the front and the back are aligned, and when I cut the cards, they're all straight. Because if I just print directly on the back of the paper, there might be like a couple millimeters off, a couple half inches off.
Right.
So it's the printers are not precise enough to do that back and front printing at the same time. So my procedure works, but I just don't have the right paper right now. I have like 8 prototypes, and either the print quality is amazing with some photo paper, but the cards are just too sticky, and you cannot fan your cards. They just all stick together. Or the quality is not good enough, and they don't stick together, but it just doesn't feel like a real product. The closest I've gotten is like with some weird transparent paper, and I would say the quality is good, and it does not stick, but the cards are just a little bit too thick for my taste. And the procedure to glue them together is, since the paper is transparent, I have to glue both the front and the back to a middle layer, and that's just too much work. Right. I would really like to have just a 2-step process, like the front, the back, and glue them together. So I am still looking for the right paper. I have bought so many paper. I have I maybe have a half dozen style of paper like next to me right now, but I'm fairly confident I'm gonna find something. But yeah, I'm having fun. I'm gonna share the pictures. You're gonna see it looks really good. But yeah, I would be very happy if I could find the right paper to have my playing cards.
Yeah. I can understand that to some extent. It can be difficult to find the exact right thing that you're looking for in nearly any hobby. It's always a pain.
Exactly,
So,
and like it's a very niche hobby. So like
yeah.
even going to the like Home Depot, not Home Depot, but the place where they sell printers and papers and stuff, they don't have all the paper available online, and those you see on Amazon, it's not always clear exactly what you're getting. So there's a lot of digging around trying to find exactly what you want.
Right. So the only other thing that I've been working on is there's a Warhammer tournament coming up here in Kansas City called Meeple-a-thon. It's a tournament that's taking place in a larger convention. It's a larger board gaming convention that is a charity event that's been happening since, like, I think 2018. It might be 2016. I could be getting my dates wrong. I'm not 100% sure. But it's a large charity event, so a lot of the money that goes into the event ends up going to the charity, and it's taking place at the same time as another large tournament that's happening in Wichita, Kansas called Flying Monkey Con, which is one of the biggest Warhammer tournaments that takes place here in the Midwest. So I'm not expecting a huge turnout for this tournament. We're expecting like 8 to 10 people or so. So it's going to be small, but I'm not able to make it out to Flying Monkey because Wichita is like almost 3 hours away. So I'm going to this one that's local. It's here in town. I'm trying to get some models ready for that. I'm not going to go super in depth on like what I'm taking or anything like that. We can go deeper into Warhammer at a later point in time. But I'm just kind of trying to get prepared for that, get a couple of models painted, and go and have a good time and try and do well at that tournament. So, should be a good time. Should be fun.
Yeah. I can't wait to hear how you do. Wishing you the best.
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and my last hobby project for now, I'm not going to go too deep into it because it's not done, but I've been working on a functioning, in big air quotes, but in a functioning Peggle shadow box. So basically just a pachinko thing where I've put pins on the backboard and I printed all the Peggle pegs on sticker paper, put them on the pins, and right now I can drop balls into my shadow box and they will drop to the bottom very quickly. So that's the step where I'm at. It looks like Peggle, it kind of plays like Peggle, and I want to actually have some kind of mechanism where you can actually kind of put the ball, aim it, and launch it down, and actually have kind of a bucket at the bottom where you can grab your balls at the end and put them back at the top. So I'm kind of halfway done on this, and I'm pretty stoked with how it turned out. So I'm pretty excited to see the final product.
I'm very interested in this. So, yeah, you'll have to keep us updated on how this goes.
For sure.
All right. Loot box. We're going to shout out some other content creators and kind of share things that we're interested in here in this segment of the podcast. I have two things that I want to shout out today, and these are both content creators that I found only recently, like within the last week or so. So I'm not super familiar with all of their content, so I can't say like whether or not their content is consistently good. But what I can say is that I enjoyed both of these videos that I watched from both of these content creators. I just wanted to preface that simply because, like, there have been times in the past where I found a new content creator where they made, like, one video that I really enjoyed, and then the rest of their content I was just kind of like, well, this is kind of not what I'm looking for, so I don't care as much, honestly.
Yeah.
So that's why I wanted to put the preface in there. My first video is from a creator called Pixel a Day. It's her video called We Are Celebrating the Wrong Indie Games. And I think her video is a little longer than it needed to be, but it's essentially her talking about the last 2 years of Game of the Year at the Game Awards, which Indie Game of the Year at both of those events got awarded to Dave the Diver and Stray. Both of those games are games that I have not played, but she talks quite in depth about why she thinks that those games aren't quite as good as other indie games that got released in those same years in 2022 and 2023. And I think it's... I also don't agree with all of her points, but I think it's interesting to, at least, get a perspective from somebody who doesn't necessarily agree with everything that you do. I think that's good and healthy.
Yeah, for sure. You need to watch. You need to watch stuff that you don't agree with, just to reinforce your position at the very least.
Yeah, for sure. And I while her video was a little bit long, I don't think the length was unfounded. Like, she was trying to make a point by, kind of stretching the time a little bit. And then my second video that I wanted to shout out is by a creator called MINMOMINMO. And it was a wheel of handheld horror games. And it was essentially him putting a bunch of horror and horror adjacent games onto a wheel and then spinning the wheel and kind of giving a small review of whatever game came up. And there's some really cool horror stuff that was released on, like, the DS and the Game Boy Advance and the 3DS and the PSP. And so he's kind of going through that kind of stuff and talking about these weird games that most people don't really talk about. I thought it was a really fun video, so I think it's worth checking out.
Yeah, that sounds like a fun concept for a video, at the very least.
What about you?
On my end, I've got two shoutouts. The first one doesn't need a shoutout. It's just so freaking good, but it's one of my favorite content creator on YouTube, and that's John Bois from Secret Base. So this guy just make long form documentaries about sports.
Oh,
usually he just gets very nerdy in the stats and just loves. What I very, very like about this guy, he just always finds the little stories in the stats. Like, on this particular match in 1996, this guy said this thing in that journal, and then this guy responded in the other journal, and it always finds the weird little interesting stories in anything he researches. And his latest documentary is actually not about sport. It's about the Reform Party from the 90s in the States, and that's the second part of I think a 3-parter documentary, like 3-hour long thing, just talking about politics in the States. I don't even live in the States, but the guy just finds the weirdest stories and delivers it in such a genuine way. It's amazing. If you've never watched any John Boy's content, I can highly recommend watching, like, Scorigami, where he plots all the different football scores that ever existed and that could exist, because there's like multiples of 7s and everything. So he just pulled out all the scores from American football and explains, like, oh, this point, this end score only happened once in 2002, and here's how it happened, because you need those specific plays to actually end up with those scores. And yeah, John Boyce is amazing.
Okay, I'm going to check that out 100% for sure. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I love watching long form content, especially because I spend a lot of time driving for my job, but also I spend a lot of time painting while I'm painting Warhammer models. Yeah. So I have a lot of time where, like, I just need something to watch, kind of, but not actually watch, like, just kind of listen to in the background. And long form content like that is preferable, so I don't have to be constantly going back to my screen and clicking on something else. So love it. I love the recommendation. I'm going to check that out for sure.
Totally understand. And the second one is actually from a smaller creator. It's called C.A. Brown. I think the algorithm decided to pop him off in the last few weeks. Like, he got, like, the one video I want to share is a game all about fan games. He made two of those. It's just sharing. It's a bit like we do, where we just talk about a bunch of games one after the other. It's a YouTube version of that. He just selects a subject. This time it's fan games, and then he presents like 8 fan games and why you should play them. And it just like straight to the point. He doesn't waste any time, and he seems to really care about those games. And I've discovered a couple of things I actually want to play when I got the time. And I've listed my top 3 from those 2 videos. There's a ROM hack of Mario 1, which is kind of remaking Celeste, but for the NES in the Mario universe. That looks really great. There's a game called Rayman Redemption, which is kind of fixing the difficulty of the first Rayman. And I've never played the first 2D Rayman, so I'm interested in actually, going back, but with this version and actually not suffering my life playing this 2D platformer. So this looks really interesting. And the last one is called Legend of Princess. It's not really a ROM hack. It's more of an homage to the Zelda games. And it's a 2D action platformer where you play Zelda in big air quotes. And it just looks freaking awesome. It's some of the best 16-bit pixel art that I've seen. It looks really juicy. And this one looks like a banger.
Awesome. All right. Emails. We would love to have some emails coming in. You can email us at thetrashstation@gmail.com. Obviously, since this is our first episode, we don't have any emails, but we would love if anybody would like to write in about anything, whether it's a question, a comment. It doesn't have to be about gaming necessarily. It could be about anything. Feel free to go ahead and send us an email.
If you find something interesting in your trash, just send us an email about it.
For sure. All right. And then we'd like to thank Heath Aldrich for our intro and outro music. You can find a link to his Bandcamp page down below in the show notes, description, whatever you're supposed to call it. And we would also like to thank RainbowSavvyDesigns for our logo. And then for me, you can find me on Twitch at twitch.tv/scotchandhobbies. That is Scotch, like the liquor, and hobbies, all one word. I stream typically every Monday and Wednesday, somewhere between 5 and 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. And I stream whatever I'm in the mood to play that day. You can find me on other social media platforms at Scotch and Hobbies as well.
And
Max?
For me, I'm on different platforms. I do make some games sometimes, so if you want to check my games, you can check my itch.io page at itch.io/Potomax. Otherwise, I'm always tweeting what I play on Twitter, so if you want to see what I play before I talk about it in the podcast, you can check me on Twitter at PotomaxDev. And if somehow you speak French, I have a ton of videos about gaming on YouTube at youtube.com/Pierre.
Excellent. And rate, like, subscribe, all those buttons that we're supposed to tell you to do for SEO reasons, all that bullshit.
Thank you for being there, and we're going to see you very soon.
Thank you. Have a great night.
You too.